Welcome back, everybody. Monday morning edition of Hot Mic rolls on. Our next guest can finally resume his life. I'm sure his kids and wife miss him after a week-long coaching search at the University of North Dakota is over. News that he broke late last night that UND has hired Eric Schmidt as its new head football coach, former defensive coordinator, former standout player, Mandan native to lead the Fighting Hawks. As Tom Miller's back with us. This might be your new time slot for us here, bud, every Monday at 10:30. Give us the lowdown. Why did Eric Schmidt win out on this head coach hire?
Yeah, I think, you just look at like a year ago, and most of us would say that his path has priced out North Dakota as the potential replacement for Bubba Schweigert as that loomed. It was Danny Freund was the successor. It's wild how timing works. And as soon as I heard, and I had heard even maybe before Bubba Schweigert had stepped down, that wasn't a hard no from an Eric Schmidt. And so, as soon as I knew that door was open, that was going to be a very difficult resume to turn down if that was to come to fruition. And I think, that's ultimately what it came down to. If you're North Dakota, you probably believe that, you get the best of both worlds as an alum, as a North Dakota guy, quote unquote, but also a guy who's seen it at the FBS level because you haven't maybe had that mix of a coach in the past, somebody who was here, but also somebody who saw it under the Callan DeBoer coaching tree.
From him leaving in 2019, giving a sense for UND fans, I know he left obviously on a good note. He's going with Callan DeBoer to Fresno State at the time. His tenure at DC, Tom, for remind fans how that went.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that, that Eric Schmidt wasn't exactly a magic bullet as a defensive coordinator in North Dakota. I think they were probably better defensively than they were in the last few years. There was more of an ability to stop the run. They still struggled against the pass a little bit. And some of that was a difficult identity adjustment as you went from the Big Sky
Correct.
Conference to the Missouri Valley. Like, everybody in the Big Sky was winging it around, and you were maybe built to stop the run. And that North Dakota had more success against the like Montana States of the world back then when it was more of a smash mouth game because I think it played into the hands that they were designed to stop. But then over time, North Dakota just struggled to stop the run. So to characterize where UND was defensively from 2014 to 2019, it was a roller coaster. It wasn't like UND was shutting everybody down and he was considered the perfect answer at defensive coordinator. But they were onto a lot of the right things. There was more talent, from the Cole Reyes, Dion Harris, Mason
right.
Bennett. From a talent perspective, there was a little more juice when Eric Schmidt was defensive coordinator, and that's a variety of reasons. I think it's worth noting it wasn't a perfect marriage there at defensive coordinator in that period.
That's a good point you make about the trans. People forget about that when their success, when they won the Big Sky at that time, 8-9 years ago, you saw it, you lived it. There were teams throwing it 60 times a game. That's what UND was designed to stop at that particular time.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the classic Bubba Schweigert phrase. Like Big Sky played defense kind of like I played I forgot what it was, like high school basketball. Like you just play defense until you get to play offense again.
Is it mandated that the 3-4 defense is coming back with Eric Schmidt as head coach in your mind?
I would be surprised if it's a 3-4. I think you look at what San Diego State did. He transformed San Diego State, I believe, from a 3-5 to a 4-2. I think we would be seeing in Grand Forks a 4-2-5, which would be very interesting. Not something I'm exactly familiar with. I mean, North Dakota's been running the 3-4 since the early 1990s. That's most of my lifetime. So, I think there are a lot of UND fans excited to see what something new looks like because the 3-4 system kind of grew tired. And as Eric Schmidt told the newspaper in San Diego, I went back and I was reading it last night, it doesn't matter what your scheme is exactly. If you can tackle, if you got the right players, if they're sound. So there's no broken scheme. It's what you recruit to.
Well, and I'll go back to that. I don't know, and you know this better. You saw every game. I don't know if they had the athletes to play it the last couple of years. I don't think they did.
I think you need an above average nose guard.
Yes.
I don't think enough times during this period UND had an above average nose guard that could blow a center up. Even UND played a true freshman, this kid out of Iowa, in the last game at Illinois State, and he was maintaining that under four redshirt freshman rule, and he blew up more plays than I had seen all year. So it was kind of like that was definitely something they were missing in that 3-4.
So obviously, much like North Dakota State, there was a very viral campaign to keep a coach on staff. Tyler Roll was last year. Obviously, the Bison went with Tim Polasek. UND players made it known, at least the ones I saw online, they wanted Isaac Frichte. What happens now with him?
Yeah, that's the big question mark. I think Isaac Frichte did an admirable job in his period of time as an interim head coach, as much as you can do. I think that, the fact that he's 33 years old and coaching at Winona State a year ago, I mean, that's a big leap from where Eric Schmidt was a year ago, coaching in the Sugar Bowl. So, I think Eric Schmidt and Isaac Frichte now have to get together, and is that something they could patch up? You saw it at North Dakota State with Tyler Roll.
Yep.
That's not an easy thing to do. Is to be passed up for that position, and then have the new head coach come in, and you be just fine with that. That's a process that I think is maybe going to take a little bit of time here.
What's the chances in your mind he stays on staff? If you were to ballpark it right now, percentage-wise, what would you say?
Boy, that feels a little bit like 50-50 for
Okay.
the exact reasons I said
Yeah.
here is, for one, I think it's dangerous as Eric Schmidt comes in. He's probably got guys in mind, and he's probably worried about the fact that you've got a guy that is well liked. That's a good start. But he's not receiving any blame for UND's history, and that's good and bad because he hasn't been here.
Yeah.
They average 30 points a game. That's great. Some of that is score chasing. I don't think you can forget that. So, I think there's a lot of people in Grand Forks who would like to see Eric Schmidt keep him. I think Eric Schmidt is open to the idea.
I know your next job is wondering who's going to be on the staff. I'll ask you that. So the guys that are on staff, I mentioned a Joel Schwenzfeier, a Sean Kostic, guys that coached with Schmidt the last time he was there. Is it automatic to think that they are part of this staff? Because he's got contacts from the last 5 years of the FBS world.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really hard process because you have Eric Schmidt, who wasn't here that long ago, to an established staff that has been together for a long time. So a lot of these guys kind of, they date back to that 2014 Bubba Schweigert arrival and the coming together of the staff. When you mention guys like Kostic and Joel Schwenzfeier, I think at the same time, Eric Schmidt knows that to some extent he needs to come in and clean house a little bit. UND went down this path to have a fresh start for a reason.
Right.
And I have to imagine that that's going to come into play here. And there's going to be a lot of tough choices because guys like Sean Kostic and Joel Schwenzfeier, I don't know if they're going to stay or go, but I know that they are two as likable guys and people as you come across. And so that's ugly side of the business.
No doubt. The next couple of questions are, with the portal opening today, how does this affect UND's football roster? I know they were going to be active anyway, Tom, in trying to acquire talent, but the current roster, how much does that change with this hire?
Yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting. I have to imagine there's a little bit of nerves if you're an athlete. I have to imagine that they understand the landscape, that there's about to be a dangerous amount of people in the portal, and that having a scholarship is better than not having a scholarship. and perhaps I would imagine there's a lot of people in the boat of like, let's go through spring ball. Let's see what it looks like. There was that feel when Danny Freund left, like, okay, let's see what Isaac Frichte and offensive line coach Trevor Olson, what they're all about. Let's give it a little fair shakeout. There might be some of that. I would imagine that you'll see some names in the portal today. It's how it is. I mean, you're seeing South Dakota State names out there. There's always going to be certain spots on your roster that just are looking for playing time, not close enough to home. Some of that stuff is going to play out. You just got to hope you keep on to some offensive linemen for number one, and then there's maybe 2 or 3, 4 or 5 names you're going to want to keep.
Winning the press conference is always the name of the game. That will be on Wednesday. Between then and now, UND fan reaction, what have you heard since this came out? You broke the story about 12 hours ago.
Yeah, I would say it's primarily really positive. Certainly, players who played for or with Eric Schmidt are very on board. He has always been a very likable person.
Yep.
There's also that aspect that there's going to be a segment of the population of UND football fans that wanted to see a full sever from any tie with the program. And we're about to see, what Eric Schmidt does. Does he bring in a ton of guys from his Fresno, San Diego, Washington stops, or does he keep some of this UND staff? I think that might change the mind or alter the minds of people right now who are like, they went in-house again. I think there's some of that, but I think of the majority, I think there's a lot of people who like what they know about Eric Schmidt.
Last thing for you, bud. I appreciate the time. I know you've been crazy busy. How much does this change the recruiting landscape in this particular state? You and I have talked about this for a long time. The Bison have gone in and got whoever they wanted. Schmitty now being back, does that change this? Or not just even in North Dakota, in Minnesota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa? How much does that change things to get UND back in some homes that maybe they haven't been over the last handful of years?
Yeah, well, we'll be able to see here what it means in the portal.
Yep.
That'll be the first thing. I think that could make a difference in the portal, what he could be able to bring in. A native son of Mandan always can help you a little bit. But it takes victories, right? Like you're not going to go into a house and just win somebody over. You got to go in there and say, hey, we got a shot here. You can be what puts us over the edge to go to challenge the power structure of the Missouri Valley Football Conference. North Dakota's nibbled at it, but not been successful enough over a period of time to win those recruiting battles. I mean, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to.
I know you're going to be crazy busy. We'll check in again once the staff is done. Great job on this, and thanks for the time this morning.
Absolutely. Good to chat with you, Tom.
There he goes. Tom Miller from the Grand Forks Herald had the story last night. Eric Schmidt, the new head football coach at UND, formally announced coming up on Wednesday morning. Of course, we'll have much more on that as the week goes on, and we'll be interested to see on who's moving, who's staying, and that goes for both players and coaches over the next little bit. We did the same dance with NDSU last year. Now we're going to do it with UND. All right, at the end of the show, we'll take a break. We got a couple more emails to get to and get you ready for a busy Monday, including a really neat football broadcast tonight. We'll tell you about that one. Hot Mic Wraps right after this.